Assalamu alaikum everyone. Uh, this is the first online webinar along with many more to come inshallah, hosted by Mastermind in Learning Solutions, an institute that focuses on financial education of youngsters. I'm your host Khizr Hussain. Our panel discussion for today is on the accounting impact of COVID-19 on businesses. Before I tell you why we're doing this webinar, I would like to introduce our panelists. All three panelists are from AF Ferguson Co Chartered Accountants, one of the leading consultancies and audit firms in Pakistan. We have with us Mr. Daniel Jaffrey, who is an ACCA member and a CFA Level 3 candidate. Mr. Jaffrey is also an associate consultant in the deals department of AF Ferguson Co. He is a registered OBU mentor, Oxford Brookes University mentor at Mastermind. Daniel will be discussing about the overall economic situation and the impact of the financial sector. Next, we have Vinesh Kumar, who is a qualified chartered accountant. Mr. Kumar is a supervising senior at AF Ferguson Co., having firm grip over the pharmaceutical and insurance business, and that is what he will be discussing today. Finally, we have Murza Naqvi with us, a gold medalist chartered accountant working as a supervising senior at AF Ferguson Co. Mr. Naqvi will be commenting on the refinery and auto sector of Pakistan. Thank you, panelists, for your participation. All right, before we start our discussion, let's talk about why we chose this topic. We've seen in the recent past that business magnates, business experts such as Mr. Ali Tabba from YBG, Mr. Musaddiq Zulkarnain from ILP, which is Interloop Pakistan, Mr. Arif Habib, they talked about various business scenarios, operational issues that they faced due to, or that the businesses will face due to COVID-19. Just 4 days back, we saw a webinar that ICAP conducted, and our respected advisor to Prime Minister on Finance, Mr. Abdul Hafiz Sheikh, took part in it. The point is that we all know that somewhere or the other, these businesses, the transactions that happen currently or in the future, have an impact on the financial statements. And as accountants, as auditors, as financial experts, we understand that all of the information with respect to a company that is, published, a publicly limited company, basically, the financial statements are published onto the markets, right? And every investor, every stakeholder, they get or they extract the information from the financial statements, right? So it's very important for us to understand how COVID-19 will impact these statements, from where analysts basically will be predicting the future of the business, investors will be deciding whether to invest in a company or not, and researchers will be doing the research on what financial impact will the future of the business will have. Therefore, the four of us obviously decided to discuss the accounting impact on businesses. This will also help us students understand the practical implication of what they study in their CA or ACCA programs. Let's start a discussion with Daniel. Daniel, my first question to you would be, we all know that this pandemic has severely affected the business spending, right? And the consumer demand, hence obviously the economy. And we saw something similar back in 2008 as well. We saw an economic crunch. We saw basically a collapse of the economy, right? And this is something similar to this, something similar to that, what happened to 2008. This is what we're facing today as well. We're seeing high employment rates, crashing markets, low to negative interest rates, obviously to induce the money supply, right, in the economy. Would you shed some light on the differing effects between the two, and what type of recovery will we be seeing in the economy now that we have COVID-19? Over to you.
So that's a pretty interesting question, because I don't think many people have been discussing about the differences between the two crises, the 2008 one and the current one that's going on. So before we move on to the effects of both of the crises I've had, let's talk about the difference how they occurred. So if we talk about the 2008 economic downturn, we'll see that it resulted from the failure of the banking system in the United States. The most notable name of which was the Lehman Brothers, due to which it caused a domino effect, which led to the financial crisis worldwide as the financial markets uh, got disrupted, and essentially the financial markets collapsed, especially in the developed countries such as the US and Europe. So that's why this crisis was also termed the financial crisis of 2008. So coming on to the problems of today. So our current crisis is not due to the failure of a certain industry. So if we look at it closely, rather, I think it would be more appropriately termed as a medical crisis, because what has effectively happened is that people are not able to perform their duties. People are not able to work due to the enforcement of lockdowns and the requirement for social distancing. What has happened is that this has led to a chain effect wherein spending power has decreased across the board. Industries do not have demands, so they do not have labor available. They cannot operate. So this has led to the collapse in a lot of industries as they have lost their purchasing power compared to the financial crisis when only the banking system had failed. So that's some of the difference of how the crisis rose about. So let's move on to how the severity of the crisis is. So the 2008 crisis came about very quickly. Hey, we saw that within say 2 weeks the whole world had been affected, and the effects were uh, quite big. But the recovery was also as quick if we take a look at the past, because only one industry had failed majorly. Okay, so the governments knew how to tackle that, and they knew that they had to focus on a certain thing to help the economy recover. Whereas if we look at the COVID-19 crisis, the problem is that this crisis has been going on since the issue surfaced first in November 2019 in Wuhan, China. So the problem is that the effects of this crisis are quite uncertain. We don't know yet what the essential the ultimate problems will be. So governments and corporations, they don't know how exactly to tackle this. So that's a bit of an issue with regards to recovery from this crisis. But the good thing this time around, the banking system, the financial systems have been relatively safe. They haven't failed. So whenever the recovery starts, when we have the medications in place, we have the vaccine in place, the financial system will play a crucial role in its lending capabilities to help the governments in their stimulus policies and help with the lending to help recover. So now let's come to Pakistan, how Pakistan has been affected, and the difference on the effect on Pakistan between the two crises. So in 2008, we saw that the global crisis did not affect Pakistan that much. That's because Pakistani markets are not as well integrated with the developed markets as one would like, due to which there was a rather a cushioning effect. The banking crisis did not affect our economy that much. However, this time around, this is not a banking crisis. Integration does not matter. This is a human capital crisis. So obviously, we are human beings living in Pakistan as well. So we are also being affected medically due to this issue. So that's why this time around, emerging countries such as our own, has been affected quite a bit by this crisis, because people have unable to work. The businesses have suffered severe curtailment of activities due to the lockdown. So the good thing is our government has taken quite fast steps and quite good appropriate measures to ensure the easing of the lockdown and presenting a stimulus package to activate the industry. So, for example, the government has, even on Friday, the government decreased the monetary policy rate by a further, State Bank decreased it by a further 100 basis points. So that's all part of government's plan to rejuvenate the industry, to rejuvenate economic activity. However, we should realize that even before this problems started, before the lockdown started, before Pakistan got hit by COVID, our government was not in the best of places. Okay? We were already facing severe budget deficits. We were facing problems with the IMF. So, and now we're expecting the government to introduce stimulus packages one after the other. There have been talks about tax cuts and the removal of capital gains tax. So, what would happen is government already has a budget deficit. So they would have the deficit would increase, even though there is lending from IMF, which is a good thing, but Pakistan has been shortlisted to provide it further lending. But the thing is, how much will the government be able to borrow? And this cannot last in perpetuity. All of the work that the FBR has been doing in the past year and a half, effectively with the removal of CGT and the tax cuts and whatnot, all of those progress is effectively being rolled back. So I don't think that's a very good thing. So I think the government's on the right track, that they need to ease the lockdown as soon as possible, and it will be, I think, better for the industry if both the provincial and central governments both come on the same page, so that we can move on to recovery as fast as possible. Yeah.
Right, Daniel. The way you identified the difference between COVID-19, the effect of COVID-19, and the 2008 financial crisis, it's very crucial. You're right about it. That was particularly because of one industry, and this is a crisis of human capital. And obviously, we need to take measures. We need to take some strict measures along with some difficult decisions to get out of this, because we were already in a position where Pakistan was facing some difficulties based on the balance of payments, and the fiscal deficit itself was huge. It had to be huge basically, because the business is not working so well. The next question, one of my favorites, is that Daniel, can you lay some light on businesses with geared financing structure? जो बिजनेस ऐसे हैं जिनके पास लोन है, जो मतलब लोन के अंदर उन्होंने लोन लिया हुआ था एक लो इंटरेस्ट रेट पे, नाउ because of the increase in interest rate, they haven't spent it off obviously. दूसरी चीज ये है कि उनको एक्स्ट्रा पैसा देना पड़ा because that increased interest rate in terms of servicing the debt, right? So obviously we can analyze this कि हमारे पास जो डेट सर्विसिंग है वो बहुत डिफिकल्ट हो गई है बिजनेस के लिए. So despite the rate and the cut in interest rate, like you mentioned, 100 basis point का cut हुआ है आज, सही है, लेकिन still high for the businesses, right? Can you briefly explain कि इसका जो effect है हमारे ADR पे, जो हमारा advances deposit ratio है banks का, what would the effect be on ADR and the loan portfolios of the bank? And obviously, I would want you to lay some light on the impact on profit and loss statement and balance sheet of the bank as well, with respect to IFRS 9, as we all know, right? And if you're expecting any significant impairment of the financial assets.
Okay, so let's talk about lending. मैं आपको पहले बता चुका हूँ कि इस क्राइसिस का एक मसला है कि there is a lot of uncertainty. तो हम एनालिसिस कर सकते हैं, बट हम अल्टीमेट क्या होगा वो हमारे लिए बताना, आई डोंट थिंक इट्स गोइंग टू बी पॉसिबल. तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, हम ये देख सकते हैं कि भाई लेंडिंग के पॉइंट्स फॉर एंड अगेंस्ट इस वक्त क्या बन रहे हैं, क्या चीज़ें हुई हैं जो लेंडिंग को फर्दर इंक्रीज लेंडिंग को सपोर्ट करेंगी, और क्या चीज़ हुई हैं जो कि बैंक की लेंडिंग्स को लिमिट करेंगी. तो सबसे पहले सपोर्टिंग पॉइंट्स देख लेते हैं. पहली चीज़ तो ये है कि लाइक मैंने पहले भी कहा कि the financial sector has been relatively safe this time around. There hasn't been a run on the banks, so the deposits for the banks are still available. Banks have quite a bit of liquidity available, so that's not going to be an issue this time around. The second thing is SBP has taken some initiatives to encourage lending. They've introduced new terms to help businesses retain employees. They're encouraging banks to increase lending. So that's also a good thing. The third thing is the decrease in the monetary policy rate. So what would happen is, if we see the last couple of years, banks had been decreasing their lending activities and they had been investing the proceeds in government securities, PIBs and T-bills. That's because the yield on those government securities was very high. The banks didn't need to lend to customers. However, with the decreasing monetary policy rates, we would expect that the new T-bills issued would be at a lower rate. So banks would be encouraged to lend to customers rather than invest in those government securities. Banks have already divested most of their equity portfolios. So I think without the fixed income instruments available, they would be more likely to provide loans to customers. Let's talk about the limits on the lending by banks. The first issue is obviously banks have, does not matter if banks have a lot of money, if they don't have room in their capital adequacy ratio, if they don't have regulatory capital available to issue those loans. So I think that might be a possible limit on how much the banks can lend out. Even so, maybe the SBP might choose to relax some of the capital conservation buffer to allow an increasing lending. Secondly, let's move on to how banks give out the money. I mean, अगर मैं एक बैंक हूँ, एक बंदा मेरे ब्रांच में आया, मैं उसको ऐसे पैसा नहीं दे दूंगा. मैं ऑब्वियसली अपनी पूरी ड्यू डिलिजेंस करता हूँ उस कस्टमर के बारे में. सही, अब मेरे पास मेरा जो एग्जिस्टिंग कस्टमर है, मसला ये जब कस्टमर आता है, मैं उसका पूरा देखता हूँ कि भाई अच्छा, ही इज गोइंग टू टेक एन एक्स अमाउंट ऑफ मनी. So how will he be able to pay that back to me along with the markup? Yes, तो मैं उनके फोरकास्ट देखता हूँ, मैं उनके हिस्टोरिकल वो देखता हूँ कि क्या उन्होंने परफॉर्मेंस दी है, क्या वो करने जा रहे हैं. तो अभी मसला हुआ है बिकॉज इकोनॉमी हैज बीन इफेक्टिवली शट डाउन फॉर द पास्ट 40+ डेज. तो मैंने जितने भी फोरकास्ट अपने बनाए थे, जितना भी एनालिसिस किया था एज अ बैंक, वो सब तो बेकार हो गया, क्योंकि वो सब तो none of that has panned out. So I'm already in trouble with the existing customers. So with the new customers, another further problem is that most of our economy is undocumented. सही, मेरे पास बैंकिंग रिलेशंस पहले से है ही नहीं किसी कस्टमर की, तो बैंक किसी नए बंदे को इन हालात में लोन उठा के दे दे, तो दैट्स गोइंग टू बी रियली रियली डिफिकल्ट. So I think it's ultimately going to depend on how this pans out, how the easing of the lockdown pans out, to see what's the ultimate effect on whether the lending increases or the banks choose to remain the current scenario that they don't issue new loans. As far as the accounting effects are concerned, we've seen the SBP has already delayed the implementation of IFRS 9 on banks. I think the initial date was 2017, but currently it's still not applicable on banks. So we could see yet another extension for the same. SBB might decide that 2020 is not the year to implement IFRS 9, and they might allow further time. But when it does get implemented, obviously, if we're talking about IFRS 9, one of the major components of calculating the expected credit losses is the calculation of PDs, the probability of defaults, which are based on forward-looking economic variables. So obviously these will be negatively reflected, which will ultimately impact the advanced the portfolios. It will be lead to an increase in provisions. The second thing that might have an effect on banks is the deferral of arrangement fee. So basically, arrangement fee arises when the banks earn an arrangement fee. It's amortized over the tenure of the loan. So we've seen that businesses are looking to extend that tenure. So the arrangement fee, obviously, that deferral will also have to be amortized over a longer period of time. So that will also have an effect on the banks. Thirdly, with regards to impairment, as you said, yes, we might see a lot of impairment going on because obviously the stock market has also crashed. So a lot of equity instruments will show, a lot of investments will show indications of impairment as per the criteria of IS 36. So the banks will need to carry out impairment testing exercise to find out the final effects of this. Thank you.
Great analysis, Daniel. Lastly, I have kept all my favorite questions for you, by the way. One last question. Since you're part of the deals department of AFX and Co, I would like to ask you that what are we looking at when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, when it comes to deal activity, when it comes to the determinants of a transaction with respect to mergers and acquisitions? What are we looking at? Because of, are we seeing an impact due to COVID-19, or like it's like there will be deals going on at a discount because companies are available at a discounted rate, right? In terms of
Yeah.
valuation. So
Yeah.
what are we looking at exactly? Can you lay some light on that?
So I don't think deal activity will be affected as much. So if you look at it in detail, there's two type of investments that are going on. If we're talking about companies acquiring other companies, so there's value-based investment and then there's growth-based investment. So growth-based investment is what we usually see, where a company buys another company to expand, to hold their growth. So that's usually in times of economic uh, betterment. Obviously, that won't be happening this time around due to the situation, depressed market. But there will be a lot of value-based investing opportunities because a lot of people, companies are having cash flow problems. A lot of people will be looking to divest their holdings. So there'll be a lot of opportunity where companies who have the cash available, who have the expertise available, they could move on and acquire those companies. So companies which have been very good in handling their cash flow during this crisis, they could have a lot of opportunities available to them. And as far as the transaction variables are concerned, so yes, there will be a negative effect on valuations, especially with regards to the discount rate. We could see a large increase in discount rates. If you notice, some sources have recommended the equity risk premium for the U.S. markets to increase by 100 basis points. So obviously, if the U.S. markets are increasing by 100 basis points, might expect a higher discount rate increase in Pakistan. So uh, let's see what happens. Obviously, it's all up in the air, but hopefully the deal activity will not be curtailed by that much.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for such insightful information. Daniel has put some such put such technical information in a very simple manner for our viewers. Moving on to Murtaza. Murtaza, you will be discussing about refining and auto sector. Auto is again one of my favorite sectors to talk about, but let's discuss refinery first. Um, can you tell our viewers how exactly a refinery business works? You know, for example, for a layman, uh, crude oil is basically a raw material for the refineries, right? And if the prices of oil are falling, a refinery should benefit, right? But what we're seeing is basically that refinery companies in Pakistan, they're looking for a bailout right now, right? They're incurring significant losses, right? So can you shed some light on this? Can you tell us how exactly a refinery business works?
Well, first of all, Khizar, thank you so much for having me in the webinar. Moving to the refinery business, I'm not going to go in much detail about the chemical process in port due to limitation of time. But let me clear it to you that the refineries in Pakistan are mostly hydro-skimming refineries, which is the most basic type of refineries that we have seen in the world. So the business works such that the crude oil being the main input, the refineries in Pakistan procure most of this crude oil from Gulf countries, and the rest is procured from local oil fields. This is then heated at the required temperatures and transformed into finished products, which include motor gasoline, high-speed diesel, furnace oil, which is a byproduct, kerosene, jet fuel, and these products are then sold by refineries to the oil marketing companies, which is mainly a major customer of the refineries. So this is how a basic model of refinery works. If we move on to the financial outlook of the refineries, we have seen that in the recent times, if you look at the last quarterly results of all the refineries, almost all of them have posted net losses. So it means that the refineries in Pakistan are already not working very well. And the COVID-19 situation, I believe, has made the situation even worse for them. So in my opinion, the refinery sector is one of the hardest hit sector due to this COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm going to discuss about the developments made in the sector after this COVID-19 has taken over the world. So if you look into the refineries in Pakistan, the Pakistani government had imposed lockdown with effect from, I believe, 23rd to 24th March 2020. Since then, we have seen some of the refineries have closed their operations or reduced their operations significantly, citing lack of demand as the main reason. They had enough inventories in their storage. If you ask me about the crude oil or the finished products, there was enough inventory with the refineries to cater this reduced demand. So it is for this reason most of them had reduced their operations or closed their operations. In wake of this news, the government entered and it had directed the oil marketing companies and refineries to cancel their import orders for the month of April, and instead the OMCs were directed to offtake the inventory from the refineries, and refineries were directed to procure stocks from the local oil fields to keep them afloat. Uh, then we saw that the local refineries, one of the local refineries, I must say that BICO, had resumed its operation from the mid of April. So this is how the refineries have been operating around this whole situation. Coming to your question regarding the international movement in international prices, whether the country is going to benefit from it or not. Uh, yes, you are right that they have declined. The crude oil was priced at around $67 per barrel in the month of January, and we have seen that it declined to around $23 per barrel in March, and it even went negative in the month of April. So yes, as far as Pakistan is concerned, we are going to benefit from it because it is going to release pressure from our balance of payment and the foreign exchange reserves, which are already depleting at a higher rate. But if you talk about refineries, it depends actually. Depends because, as I have discussed earlier, that there have been no imports during the month of April. So it means that the stock that is lying with the refineries were purchased well before the decline in the crude oil prices. So it means we are having expensive crude with us, and the products that are being made from it are also actually have costed us some a cost that is going to be higher than if we had purchased crude at the prevailing market rate right now. So if you look at the a normal in business terms, a company is going to make a profit when its input cost is lower than its selling price. But in case of refineries, we are seeing that the input costs are high, and the selling price of the products, mostly if you see, look at it, the motor gasoline, the petrol, the government has reduced the petrol prices from around 113 to around rupees 81, as I just looked at today. So the petrol prices have declined, the price of high-speed diesel has been reduced, and most importantly, furnace oil. If we talk about furnace oil, it accounts for around 25 to 30% of the yield of refineries, and we have seen a sharp decline in the prices of furnace oil, which is mainly because that the government has reduced its reliance on furnace oil for electricity power generation, and also due to the introduction of IMO 2020, the international furnace oil prices have also declined well below the price of crude. So overall, to sum it up, the price of finished products have been completely declining, and the crude that we are using to produce this product is expensive. So in short, the refineries are actually making losses due to this reason. And if you look at it, some collectively, all the refineries have posted around inventory losses of rupees 24.85 billion. So this suggests that they are having expensive crude lying with them, and the products are also made from this expensive crude. So it's not really a good scenario for the refineries.
Very well put, Murtaza. That was very informative. Can you tell us, obviously, जो आपने discussion की है, right? We understand that उस पर accounting impact क्या होगा, but just for the viewers, can you tell us कि P&L and balance sheet के ऊपर refineries ये जो COVID-19 का जो impact आपने बताया अभी पूरा जो और pre COVID-19 चल रहा था ये पहले से, तो इसका क्या impact होगा हमारी refineries के ऊपर? हम लोग like are we looking at significant inventory write downs जो कि समझ आते रहते थे आपकी input cost ज्यादा है, आपकी NRV आ जाती है inventory के ऊपर, right? और प्रोडक्शन क्योंकि डिमांड आगे नहीं है, प्रोडक्शन भी कम है, तो हमारे जो नॉन करंट एसेट्स हैं ऑब्वियसली उनकी जो वैल्यू इन यूज है IAS 36 के साथ जो कैलकुलेट होती है, विल दैट बी इम्पैक्टेड? हमारे जो फ्यूचर कैश फ्लोज हैं वो इम्पैक्ट हो रहे होंगे?
Exactly, yes, RS standards we will have to consider it while preparing the financial statements. Importantly, refineries will have to assess whether their assumption for the going concern basis of counting is appropriate in this whole scenario. They will have to see whether they have enough liquidity. They'll have to see if the lenders are willing to lend them more or extend their payment terms. Because if you look at the balance sheet of most of the refineries, they have huge loans on it. So all these information should be considered while assessing the going concern assumption, and also the information which will be available in the coming up days, because we know that the refineries have approached the government for a bailout package. So we are expecting some news from the government as well. So this all this information should be considered while assessing the company's ability to continue as a going concern. And if there are material uncertainties relating to going concern, then these will need to be disclosed. Moving on, as you said that there are going to be inventory losses. Exactly, here the provisions of IS2 will become applicable, because what I have discussed, that net realizable value of the products that are being made is constantly declining. The government is reducing the prices. The price of furnace oil is also declining. So yes, there will be impact. Will have to write down the inventory to net realizable value. Then, if we talk about IS30, the standard requires that the asset should be valued at the lower of carrying amount and the recoverable amount. So the refineries will have to consider whether the recoverable amount has been impacted by the COVID-19 situation, because the demand has been affected, the selling prices have been affected. So the value in use is going to be affected. In short, they will have to see whether the value in use, the fair value to cost to sale, is appropriate, and whether the assets are reported at the right amount. So there are going to be payments as well. They'll have to consider, because the refineries have some very huge power plants and uh, other refinery machinery and equipments that should be assessed for the impairment. Then another thing that I have noticed, that because most of the refineries have taken out loans, they might go for some restructuring negotiations with the banks. Here, the provisions of IFRS 9 will become applicable, because the refineries will have to assess the liability. To assess it, they will have to compare the cash flows before and after the modification discounted at the original effective interest rate, and compare them. If the difference is substantial, then they will have to recognize the liability. Also, if they will have to see whether they are in compliance with the covenants of the loan contracts. If there is any breach or the loan become repayable immediately, then we will have to see whether it is appropriately classified or not. So these are all the standards which will have a direct impact on the refineries. And if, let's say, the government announces a package, or there is some grant provided to refineries, then the provisions of IS20 will also become applicable. They will have to see whether the grant is to be recognized immediately or over time with the fulfillment of the terms of the grant.
Thank you, Mirza. Thank you for explaining us the accounting impact on the refineries. Like I mentioned, one of my favorite sectors, automobile. What do you think? We've seen the numbers for April. We've seen the numbers
Yeah.
for Indus. We've seen the numbers for Edge Car. We've seen the numbers for Suzuki. They haven't sold even a single car in April, right? And probably May would go the same with a very less amount of units sold. How do you see the auto sector recovering? Like, would it be a late recovery, and how would it be? How would it, basically, what do you call that? किस तरह जो है वो ये लोग अपना फेस कर रहे होंगे COVID-19 को, right? Because obviously they've already been punished, I would say, because of devaluation, PKR, because of high import duties, right? So they've already been punished for it, honestly speaking, right? So किस तरह ये लोग recover कर रहे
Well,
होंगे?
well, Khizr, this is a difficult question to answer, because there are very different sentiments related to this. We have seen that most of the auto manufacturers have raised their prices during this lockdown, and mainly because of the devaluation of the currency. And if you ask me, then I believe that due to this lockdown, most of the businesses have lost their revenue during this whole period. We have seen that some of the people have been laid off from their jobs. some companies have resorted with pay cuts. So there's some pressure on the savings that people have accumulated over the time. So when the lockdown is lifted, we will, I believe that there's going to be not a quick recovery in the economy, because people will definitely not spend at the rate that they would have been if this all situation was not created. So some of the models will see a decline in the demand. These will be the models that have high price in elasticities. For other than this, if we talk about some um, models which have lower price elasticities, they are not going to be much affected from this whole situation. Moving on, if we see that the auto sector has also approached the government for some bailout package. They have asked for reduction in the rate of sales tax. They have also requested for reduction in the income taxes, the minimum taxes which almost all of them are paying, and the withholding taxes that are being imposed by the government. They have also asked for reduction in FED. So all these measures are going to impact how we see the recovery in the auto sector. And as discussed by Daniel, the government has also reduced the monetary policy rate from 9% to 8%. So this means that people can borrow at a lower rate. So this whole scenario, the whole interest rate structure also has impact on the demand for the cars, because some of the people take out loans to purchase their cars. So this all will depend on how this situation develops over time and what we look at it.
Thank you, Mirza. I would also like to know the accounting impact because of what you've explained on the auto sector. We know that obviously मार्जिन फाइनेंसिंग चल रही होती है ऑटो सेक्टर की. जब गाड़ी नहीं बिक्री होती तो जो है वो डिस्काउंट्स लगा देते हैं, वो बोलते हैं कि 0% पे ले जाएं आप. सही है. और फिर again we can obviously see an increase in this provision for slow moving inventory, right? This is what I think, that this is what I have analyzed over the period of time. What do you think? ये इसी तरह का चलेगा या मतलब कुछ प्रोविजंस हमारे बढ़ रहे होंगे और एडवांसेस हमने देखा है कि कम हो गए हैं. एडवांसेस तो कम हो गए हैं, बहुत सिग्निफिकेंटली कम हो गए हैं. हमारी बैलेंस शीट को उसने काफी हिट किया है ऑटो सेक्टर की. तो आप थोड़ा सा इस पे बताएंगे क्या इस पे और इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा अकाउंटिंग का.
जैसे कि मैंने डिस्कस किया था रिफाइनरीज के केस में, ऑटो सेक्टर में भी ज्यादातर वही वाले स्टैंडर्ड्स एप्लीकेबल होंगे. गोइंग कंसर्न हो गया, आपने वहां पे भी असेसमेंट करनी है. आपने क्या कहते हैं IAS 36 की भी असेसमेंट करनी है. वहाँ पे इम्पेयरमेंट तो नहीं आ रही आपके प्लांट्स पे, क्योंकि जाहिर है अगर आप देखें तो ऑटो सेक्टर की भी डिमांड काफी कम होगी. अभी बिल्कुल एक तो सेल नहीं हुई, फिर कम होगी, फिर प्राइसेस का इम्पैक्ट भी देखना पड़ेगा कि अगर वो लोग मतलब प्राइस अगर कम कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे, जो भी होता है. तो IAS 36 की भी आपने टेस्टिंग करनी है. तो अगर इन्वेंट्री की बात करें तो डेफिनेटली आपने देखा होगा कि अगर कोई मॉडल कुछ मतलब गाड़ियां खड़ी हुई हैं तो कुछ अगर ऑब्सोलीट हो रहा है या कुछ इस तरह के मसले आ रहे हैं, कोई उसके पार्ट्स में कुछ इशू अगर आ गया तो फिर उसकी भी आपने सारी टेस्टिंग करनी होगी देखने के लिए. One major thing that I believe should be looked into is the impact of IFRS 15, because we might see some incentives being provided by the auto manufacturers to attract the customers. They might provide additional warranties, they might provide additional services. So we will have to see that whether these services or warranties are distinct product or service or not. If these are distinct product or services, then this is going to be a separate performance obligation, and the revenue for that should be recognized separately and according to the recognition policy for that particular revenue. Moreover, we will have to see, as I in past days I've seen that some of the manufacturers are planning to offer zero markup for their products. So we will have to also see that whether the price of the product includes a significant financing component or not. So these are some of the major implications that may have on the auto sector, and some of which I haven't discussed in the refineries is that they will have to see if if any of the manufacturers have recognized a deferred tax asset. They will have to see whether they have foreseeable undue profits to utilize it or not. So this is all that should
Thank
be
you.
considered while preparing the balance sheet and the financial statements of by the automobile industry.
Thank you, Mirza. Thank you for such a detailed, informative reply. I hope the industries recover sooner than you expect, because
Inshallah.
obviously these are the industries that are paying huge taxes. They they basically contribute to the uh, exchequer, right? And
Exactly.
a lot of people are employed. They've employed a lot of people, so we don't want people to get unemployed because of low business or no demand, right? Finally, moving on to our last panelist, Vinesh. Vinesh, how are you?
Fine, how are you? How's everyone?
Great, great, great. All right, Vinesh. Two sectors: pharma and insurance, right? Vinesh, pharma sector basically lies at the heart of all the transition from the pre-COVID to the post-COVID world, right? Pakistan unfortunately lacks the resources in biotech research, but still, we wish to play by the rule book of the developed economies, such as Germany, right? When it comes to curing COVID-19, considering that this sector is not immune to the economic challenges posed by COVID-19, where do you see the pharma industry heading? And can you also tell us if you're expecting an unusual accounting impact on the FS of the pharma companies? Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kiza, first of all, for having me on the webinar. I really appreciate your effort to bring in light some most important accounting issues of our times. So, you quite rightly pointed out that Pakistan lacks the innovation and the research and the biosciences and the pharmaceutical sector. And right now, as we speak, there is a race going on in the world, a race for the vaccine, a race for the cure for this COVID-19. And as per Milken Institute, which is a US-based research institute and a think tank, currently there are around 216 treatments that are being considered for this COVID-19 and 133 vaccines that are under development for this pandemic. And if I tell you, recently there's been a breakthrough in the cure for pandemic. The U.S. Food and Drug Authority (FDA) has actually authorized the use of a drug, remdesivir, which is a drug developed by Gilead Sciences and Corporation, a US-based global pharmaceutical firm. And there's a good hope and good news for Pakistan as well in this regard, because on 13th May, that is Wednesday, our local firm, Ferozson's Laboratories Limited, which is a listed company, a well-renowned pharmaceutical company, has made an agreement with Gilead Sciences for the manufacture of remdesivir, which is quite a positive development considering the current situation of Pakistan. Sorry. So there has been quite a breakthrough, and if we I would try to highlight here that on Monday, actually, Ferozson's Laboratories announced that they are in the negotiations for the development of this drug with Gilead Sciences and Corporation. And on Wednesday, they announced that they have struck an agreement with the firm, US-based firm. And over the period of 1 week, from Monday till Friday, the share price of Ferozson's actually jumped up by more than 33%. So, we all know that with crisis comes opportunities. So, moving on, if we are expecting a vaccine in the next 12 to 18 months, and considering this development, and considering the fact that more local firms may also want to cash in this opportunity and may also want to strike agreement with Gilead Sciences. So there is an opportunity for pharmaceutical sector as far as their business is concerned. Now, talking about the economic challenges posed by COVID-19 on the pharmaceutical sector of Pakistan, it would be pertinent to look at where the pharmaceutical sector stood before COVID-19. So, Pakistan pharma sector was valued at around 373 billion rupees in 2019, and it had been growing. The pharmaceutical sales had been growing at an annual rate of 12% from 2013 till 2019, and further growth was expected by around 9% in the years to come. Uh, but the problems for pharmaceutical sector started in mid 2019, when, owing to the Indian annexation of Indian occupied Kashmir, the government of Pakistan banned the import of raw material from India. And to put things in perspective here, let me tell you that as per Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, Pakistan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, uh, 95% of the goods that are being produced in Pakistan require some form of raw material for them to produce. And over 50% of the raw material comes from India, and the rest from China and other European countries. So Pakistani pharmaceutical market was already witnessing a very acute shortage of raw materials. And owing to this fact, the government in the very next month lifted the ban, but it restricted of lifting the ban to only uh, uh, life-saving drugs, the raw materials pertaining to life-saving drugs, and for the rest, the ban continued. So there has been a disruption in the supply chain for pharmaceutical sector pre-COVID, and the COVID situation has worsened because uh, uh, in China, we all know that all the factories were shut down for about 1.5 months. And India and China, by the way, are global leader in the supply of pharmaceutical raw material. So there have been disruptions in global supply chain all over the world, and Pakistan obviously is no exception. And considering the import was already banned from India, so the COVID situation only worsened the issues in the supply chain. And further, what COVID has done, we all know that the hospital OPDs were shut for nearly like 30 to 40 days. अभी खुल गई हैं, but obviously वो कोई अगर किसी को जाना भी होगा to the hospital, तो वो भी थोड़ा अभी restrict करेगा because of COVID, obviously, क्योंकि बहुत vulnerable है, hospitals are quite vulnerable places. तो OPDs आपकी बंद हो गई हैं. Then आपकी जनरल इकोनॉमी में जो स्लो डाउन है, ऑब्वियसली उसने भी इम्पैक्ट किया है सेल्स को, आपकी फार्मास्यूटिकल सेल्स को. एंड देन जो ऑब्वियसली ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन का तो मैंने बता दिया आपको. देन एक्सचेंज रेट्स की जो एडवर्स मूवमेंट्स हैं, ऑब्वियसली इंपोर्ट्स बहुत ज्यादा होती हैं, इसमें इंपोर्ट्स का फैक्टर जो है कॉस्टिंग में बहुत ज्यादा होता है. तो ऑब्वियसली exchange rate movements have obviously worsened and has caused the cost of the pharmaceutical drugs to rise. And this, coupled with the strict regulatory price control by DRAP, has only made situation worse for Pakistani pharmaceutical market, to say the least. And if I talk about COVID-19 impacts on the financials specifically, I foresee two areas where the firms should look into as far as accounting obligations are concerned. The first one is inventory. Obviously, as previous participants have talked about IS2 and valuing inventories at lower of cost and NRV, and considering the decrease in demand and the decrease in production rate will necessitate the measurement of inventory and estimation of its net realizable value. and there I can foresee some impairment in the inventories, and further the receivables, the impairment of receivables. Now we all know the impairment of receivables are governed by IFRS 9 impairment model, and especially the receivables from the public sector health organizations that the these pharmaceutical firms supply the drugs to. So these two areas are of specific concern as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Anish. That was very informative about the pharma sector. Like you basically rightly identified about the imports and the effect of falling exchange rate on the imports. And since we're not on good terms with India, unfortunately, our imports are affected because of that. Uh, Moving on to one of the crucial industries of Pakistan, the insurance industry, right? Can you tell our viewers how does the insurance business work, first of all? Secondly, if there's a difference between a conventional insurance business and an Islamic insurance, right? Also, if you can highlight something about the accounting standards that are applied on the insurance business and what standards are applied when we talk about insurance.
Okay, as far as insurance is concerned, you rightly pointed out that it is one of the crucial sectors, and it is considered as one of the crucial sectors around the world. But obviously, in Pakistan, this is, I would say, an underrated sector as far as the contribution to economy is concerned. So, if you want to measure the economic security of the country, you measure that by the maturity and how developed the insurance sector is, which in Pakistan unfortunately is not. Uh, so as far as how the insurance business and how the insurance companies are operated is concerned, there are some basic principles and basic business models uh, uh, in place for the insurance business. Obviously, I'll not go into the great detail as we have time limitation, because insurance is quite a specialized sector. But there are some key principles that I would like to discuss as regards how insurance business works. So, insurance business works on the basis of transferring of risk and risk management. So इंश्योरेंस कंपनी बेसिकली क्या करती है, वो आपसे रिस्क लेती है and then उसके against they charge a certain premium for that risk, and this is how they create a pool of premiums from the policy holders, and from that pool they make investments in equity securities, investments in debt securities, and they grow their pool, and from that pool they make the payment of claims that policyholders are entitled to in the case of an event. So this is the basic model of insurance, very how insurance company works. So another important thing in the insurance is that insurance companies do not retain 100% of the risk that they write, and consequently 100% of the premium that they write. They pass on that risk and premium to a reinsurer, and the passing on obviously varies from country to country, and reinsurance arrangements and company to company they vary. So they do not retain 100% of the risk. They pass on some proportion of the risk to the reinsurer, because that is exactly how they manage their risk. So a reinsurance company basically is one that insures the insurance company. इंश्योरेंस कंपनी की इंश्योरेंस करने वाली इज री इंश्योरेंस कंपनी, और पाकिस्तान में सिर्फ एक ही री इंश्योरेंस कंपनी है, विच इज अ पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी, पाकिस्तान री इंश्योरेंस कंपनी, और बाकी तो फिर बाहर ही हैं इंश्योरेंस कंपनी, तो वहाँ से फिर री इंश्योरेंस अरेंजमेंट्स जो है वो प्रोक्योर करते हैं हमारी लोकल इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज, एंड दिस इज हाउ दे सीड देयर रिस्क, ट्रांसफर देयर रिस्क एंड प्रीमियम्स. So मतलब प्रीमियम is the source of income and inflows for them, and claims and reinsurance expense is the basically major outflows for the insurance business. अच्छा, इस्लामिक इंश्योरेंस की आपने बात की. अब दिस इज अब डिस्प्यूटेड भी है ये काफी. इसको जो है वो लोग डिफरेंट ओपिनियंस हैं कि आइदर ये इस्लामिक इंश्योरेंस वाकई में शरिया कंप्लाइंट है भी या नहीं है. एनीवेज आई विल नॉट गो इनटू दैट डिटेल, बट कुछ बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स हैं व्हिच डिफरेंशिएट द कन्वेंशनल एंड इस्लामिक इंश्योरेंस. अच्छा, इस्लामिक इंश्योरेंस is called takaful, and takaful is derived from an Arabic word kafala, which means to guarantee. So is derived from the takaful word is derived from this Arabic word, and जो basic differentiating principles हैं वो दो चार हैं. First one is, in conventional insurance there is a transfer of risk from the policyholder to the insurance company, and insurance company then has the right to the premiums. Once policyholder ने premium pay कर दिया, so it is up to the insurance company how they manage that premium and how they manage the money. In Islamic insurance, which is takaful, there is a sharing of risk rather than transferring of risk. So basically, policyholder, which in takaful called participant, so participant shares in the risk of the insurer, and the money belongs to the participant as well as the takaful operator. Basically, takaful जो arrangement है उसमें the insurance company acts as an asset management company which manages the pool of the participants and charges an operator fee, and just like asset management company work करती है. So there is a separation between the participant fund, the participant, and the operator that manages that fund. तो ये clear separation है in the takaful जो Islamic insurance है. अच्छा, further, the investments are Sharia compliant in takaful, or in conventional insurance there is no as such limit. Obviously they are free to invest wherever they can, wherever they wish. तो एक तो ये clear जो है वो differentiating factor है. अच्छा, then the profit, the surplus for takaful and profit for conventional. The profit belongs to the company's shareholders in conventional business. In takaful business, the surplus belongs to the participants who have invested in that pool. So these are basically the key differences, the key differences in the business models and the operational models that differentiate the two businesses. So yeah, and another thing that you asked is the accounting standards that apply to these insurance companies. So in Pakistan, the accounting and reporting framework for the insurance companies is basically IFRS, but we have local laws in place that regulate the accounting and the accounting and financial reporting of insurance companies. So the framework overall comprises of IFRS as well as those local guidance, but there are some key provisions or key guidance in the local laws which override the IFRS. So all the key issues as far as accounting is concerned, including the measurement and recognition of assets and liabilities, the revenue recognition, are guided by the local laws in spite of the IFRS, because we have local guidance in respect of those issues. And the framework actually overrides, or I would say the key issues for accounting purposes are derived from the local guidance as compared to IFRS. The rest of the rest of the principles, accounting principles and reporting standards, are derived from IFRS, which are not in the local guidance. So yeah.
Thank you, Anish. Thanking for uh, telling our viewers the difference between Islamic and conventional insurance, and rightly highlighting how the insurance ordinance basically overrides IFRS in this case. Um, Due to COVID-19, right? Are we foreseeing a surge in the number of claims, and how do you think the insurance operations will be affected due to this? And also, are we looking any write-offs in the premiums, and to what extent? You know, we know exactly कि भाई क्या situations हम गुजर रहे हैं, तो write-offs हम expect कर रहे होंगे premiums में अच्छा खासा, right? Can you shed some light on that?
अच्छा, इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज की जो बैलेंस शीट एंड प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस, वो it is impacted in in a two faceted way, or I would say in quite a unique way as compared to other industries. Because यहाँ पे asset side भी affect हो रही है, liability side भी affect हो रही है, and I'll tell you how. First of all, premiums और claims की अगर हम बात करें, तो premiums में variation अगर हम analyze करना चाह रहे हैं, तो we need to break it down into the classes of policies that the insurer writes and the insurer provides. So basically, because it will vary a lot from class to class and from specific insurance clauses that are contained in the policy. So if I talk about premium, so for example, just say motor insurance है, so we have witnessed a less traffic in the past 40 days, and as Murtaza already pointed out, that sales have declined, the operations are shut down of automotive industries. तो गाड़ियां बिक ही नहीं रही, तो फिर इंश्योरेंस कहाँ से होगी? तो so motor insurance is the travel insurance. If you talk about travel insurance, so there have been restrictions. आज कुछ 30% के अराउंड जो है वो गवर्नमेंट ने बोला है कि वो दे विल ओपन द लोकल ट्रैवल, एयर ट्रैवल, बट ग्लोबल जो है वो ट्रैवल बिल्कुल रिस्ट्रिक्टेड है अभी, एंड शट डाउन, तो उसकी वजह से ट्रैवल इंश्योरेंस इम्पैक्ट करेगा. अच्छा, अगर मैं लाइफ इंश्योरेंस की बात करूं स्पेसिफिकली, तो मोर्टेलिटी एंड मोर्बिडिटी रेट्स ऑब्वियसली वो बढ़ेंगे, ग्लोबली बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्ट होगा इसकी वजह से, जो नंबर ऑफ क्लेम्स आएंगे आपके पास. पाकिस्तान में वी कैन नॉट से विद सर्टेनिटी, बिकॉज यहाँ पे जो इंश्योरेंस की पेनिट्रेशन है, यानी कि जो द नंबर ऑफ पीपल दैट हैव द इंश्योरेंस, वो बहुत कम है यहाँ पे, और इतनी डेवलप्ड मार्केट नहीं है इंश्योरेंस की हमारे पास पाकिस्तान में. ग्लोबली तो एक बहुत मेजर इशू है कि मोर्टेलिटी एंड मोर्बिडिटी रेट्स बहुत बढ़ेंगे, और इंश्योरेंस आर एक्सपेक्टिंग अ सर्ज इन द नंबर ऑफ क्लेम्स दैट दे विल गेट. तो वो एक की इशू है वहाँ पे. और देन इफ आई टॉक अबाउट द operational aspects regarding the premiums and claims before moving on to the balance sheet, तो इसमें वन थिंग इज के जो प्रीमियम इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज राइट करती हैं, स्पेशली लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, तो वो बहुत हद तक बेस्ड होता है ऑन द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ देयर सेल्स एजेंट्स. और अभी सेल्स एजेंट्स की मोबिलिटी बिल्कुल खत्म हो गई है, और अभी ऑब्वियसली दे कैन नॉट गो इनटू फील्ड्स एंड मार्केट द इंश्योरेंस प्रोडक्ट्स. तो उसकी वजह से नंबर ऑफ जो जो प्रीमियम का रेवेन्यू है, दैट इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू डिक्लाइन. एंड इंश्योरेंस हमारे यहाँ वैसे ही एक लग्जरी समझी जाती है रादर देन नेसेसिटी. और इनकम लेवल्स जब लो होंगे, और एज वी आर सीइंग कि जीडीपी is expected to contract by more than 1%, that will affect the disposable income that individuals have. And insurance, I think, would be the least consideration that any individual will have as far as the spending is concerned. Because Pakistan में obviously यहाँ पे इतनी awareness नहीं है about the insurance और उसके benefits for की awareness नहीं है. So premiums are sure to decline. Claims, I'm expecting a surge in the number of claims. The exact scale and the exact uh, uh, percentage increase in the claims cannot be predicted with surety, but we will see an upward trend in the number of claims. And insurance companies एक तरह का policy write करती हैं, business interruption policy, which is a policy that covers your loss of gross profit and loss of revenue if there is an interruption in the business. But having said that, उसमें एक जर्नल क्लॉज होती है कि वो इस तरह के पैंडेमिक्स से अगर बिजनेस इफेक्ट होता है तो दैट इट विल नॉट ट्रिगर द इंश्योरेंस it will not trigger the insurance claim basically, क्योंकि it generally considers the disruption due to some catastrophic event, due to some physical disruption, earthquake हो गया या इस तरह की चीज हो गई. So again, it again depends on the particular clauses that insurance policy has, and it will vary from company to company and from policy to policy. So but trend जो है वो upward ही है claims में. अच्छा, अगर मैं बैलेंस शीट की तरफ आऊँ तो एसेट साइड पे जो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स that insurance companies have either in equity or debt, both are expected to affect in a negative way, because obviously equity market we have seen equity market जो है बिल्कुल down है, and then interest rates continuously जो है वो उसमें कट लग रहा है, तो obviously जो debt instruments हैं उसकी वैल्यूएशन पे इफेक्ट आएगा. और अगर मैं लाइबिलिटी की बात करूं तो लाइबिलिटी में सबसे द मेजर लाइबिलिटी इज क्लेम लाइबिलिटी, और insurers have to estimate a reserve related to claims, which is called IBNR reserve, incurred but not reported claims. It is basically an extra, I would say, a cushion of claims that have not been reported in a particular reporting period but are expected to come in the future. So due to business disruptions and due to ये lockdown वगैरह की वजह से obviously जो claims report होने थे जितने एक particular insurance company को, वो उसमें जरूर उसमें कमी आई होगी और अब वो रिपोर्ट होंगे इन द नेक्स्ट पीरियड. तो वो जो रिजर्व एस्टिमेशन है जो कि नॉर्मली एक्चुअली कर रहा होता है इंश्योरेंस कंपनी का, तो वो रिजर्व एस्टिमेशन में भी अप्रोच एंड वी विल सी एन इंक्रीज इन दैट रिजर्व आल्सो. So that is it.
Thank you, Vinesh. Thank you for the information that you have provided. और बहुत comprehensive analysis है आपका इस चीज के ऊपर. I would like to come back to Daniel Jaffrey. Daniel, एक last question है मुझे आपसे ये पूछना है, वो ये है कि मुज्जा ने हमसे बात की, विनेश ने हमसे बात की, हमें बताया कि भाई respective industries के अंदर क्या मसले हैं और क्या मसले फोर्सी किए जा रहे हैं, और ऐसी बात है ये हमारे फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट से जैसे हमने पहले डिस्कस किया था कि इम्पैक्ट करेगा. अगर मैं जनरल इकोनॉमी के हिसाब से बात करूँ, वो आपने बता दिया कि इकोनॉमी जो है वो किस तरह या किस फेज के अंदर है अभी. आई जस्ट वांट टू नो दैट आप क्या समझते हैं कि हम लोग क्या इस चीज से बाहर आ सकेंगे, और जिस तरह जो एक नॉर्म था पहले, विल द नॉर्म चेंज इटसेल्फ, और बिजनेस नॉर्म आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट ऑब्वियसली, विल इट चेंज और ये यही रहेगा जैसे पहले था?
तो बहुत अच्छा सवाल है ये कि हम सब ने ये तो डिटरमाइन कर लिया कि भाई अनसर्टेनिटी बहुत है और अफेक्ट तो हुए हैं बिजनेस, और इंशाल्लाह ऑब्वियसली रिकवरी भी होगी. बट इसके लिए सबसे सही चीज ये है कि हम उस कंट्री को देखें जिसने ऑलरेडी रिकवरी शुरू कर दी है. हम चाइना को देखें, चाइना में ऑलरेडी केसेस कम होने लगे हैं और इकोनॉमी रिकवर होना शुरू हो गई है, इंडस्ट्री उनकी तकरीबन पूरी खुल गई है, इनफैक्ट रिकॉर्ड प्रोडक्शन वगैरह वहाँ पे हिट कर रही है. बट द थिंग इज लोगों के परसेप्शंस चेंज हो गए हैं, लोगों की लाइफस्टाइल इसकी वजह से चेंज हो गई है, स्पेशली विद रिगार्ड्स टू कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग. अब पहले जो बंदा, एक एग्जांपल लेंगे, हर साल फोन चेंज कर रहा था, अब उसके दिमाग में खौफ बैठ गया कि व्हाट इफ दिस हैपेंस अगेन, क्योंकि अभी तक आपकी वैक्सीन आई नहीं है. व्हाट इफ द लॉकडाउन हैपेंस अगेन, सही है वैक्सीन भी आ गई कोविड-19 खत्म हो गया बट इन द फ्यूचर दिस कुड repeat itself theoretically. So we will see a change in the underlying structure of the society, in the underlying spending patterns. So the thing is, we're never going back to normal, but let's see what the new normal will be.
Thank you, Daniel. Hopefully, we all see the new normal, जो कि बहुत ही अच्छा होगा इंशाल्लाह, क्योंकि like you said, production double हो चुकी है, मतलब increase हो चुकी है चाइना के अंदर. But again, लोग जो perception है spending का, that has changed. तो वो आपके पूरे economic dynamics को जो है वो change कर देता है. I would like to thank all the panelists, Daniel, Mursa, Vinesh. It was great talking to you all. Hopefully, we will get out of this stronger, more resilient, with a smarter and prudent approach towards business. And thank you once again for your time.